This story starts in the lead up to Halloween. To set the scene, I live near Glasgow in Scotland. I stay with my parents, siblings, cats, and dogs. We're a close-knit family and often spend nights together in the living room, watching TV, playing games, and catching up on our lives. At the time of this story, I was 16, turning 17. I was in high school, but getting closer to leaving and starting my education outside of it. In the days leading up to Halloween, during one of those late nights together, we were watching a horror movie marathon. The kind of thing we do every year around that time. It's one of my favorite traditions. The house was decorated with fake cobwebs, carved pumpkins glowing on the windowsill, and a bowl of sweets by the door for trick-or-treaters. During the movie, we heard a knock at the door. At first, nobody thought anything of it. Halloween knocking was completely normal. My mom got up to answer, expecting kids in costume, but nobody was there. The street was empty. Our garden wrapped from the front of the house around to the back, so she checked along the side too, but there was nobody there either. She came back inside and we resumed the movie, laughing it off as pranksters. A few days later, I was sitting at the living room table doing exam work when I heard another knock. I paused and went to answer the door, but again, nobody was there. We assumed it was neighborhood kids riding the Halloween hype. Where I'm from, kids sometimes get bored and cause trouble instead of finding something better to do. In Scotland, there's a game called Chappie, where kids knock on someone's door and run away laughing. During October, it practically becomes a sport. We have a family group chat where we keep each other updated, and throughout that week, several family members mentioned experiencing the same thing. The one that stood out the most was something my dad experienced. At the time, my dad usually stayed up later than everyone else, either playing Xbox or watching shows once the house was quiet. One night around 11:30, when the street was silent and every trick-or-treater had long since gone home, he heard a very quiet knock. He was confused because of the time. He checked through the peephole before opening the door but saw nobody. He slowly unlocked and opened the door to look outside. Again, nobody was there, just a quiet, empty street. He locked the door and came upstairs to ask if anyone had heard it, but because the knock was so quiet, nobody else had. This started to unsettle us because it had been happening repeatedly. Nobody had ever seen or heard anyone outside, except for the knocking itself. Usually when kids do Chappie, you hear them laughing or running away. This felt different. Halloween night is when everything escalated. We spent the evening as a family, handing out sweets to the early trick-or-treaters, watching horror films, carving a last-minute pumpkin, and eating way too much Halloween candy. It was a great night. Later on, I felt sick from all the sugar, which honestly wasn't surprising. I went upstairs to lie down, ended up dozing off, and woke up hours later. When I checked my phone, it said 2:01 a.m. Everyone else was in bed and the house was completely silent. The street outside had gone quiet hours ago. I knew I wouldn't be able to fall back asleep, so I stayed on my phone in the dark, scrolling through social media, watching Halloween costume videos, messaging friends who were still awake. With no school and no responsibilities, it felt fine to just exist in the middle of the night. After a while, I heard a faint knock. I wasn't sure if it came from my door, my window, or if I imagined it. I sat up straight in bed, staring into the dark room with my heart racing. I didn't want to move. I knew nobody should be outside at that time on Halloween night. Even the most dedicated pranksters would have called it hours ago. I didn't know if the past few weeks were just getting into my head, or if someone was actually inside the house. My room is on the second floor, so someone being at my window would be very unlikely. After what felt like forever, I finally worked up the courage to open my bedroom door. As I did, I heard what sounded like footsteps coming up the stairs. My brain immediately assumed it was my dad coming up to bed after staying up late like he usually did. I stepped into view of the staircase to tell him I was still awake and had heard the knocking again. That's when I realized it wasn't my dad. It was a man I'd never seen before. I immediately felt sick. I wondered if this was the person behind all the knocking. He was already inside the house, staggering as he climbed the stairs, clearly heavily intoxicated. I slowly backed into my room, luckily without him seeing me, and quietly shut my door. I could hear him walking around, opening doors, going into each room one by one. I remember thinking it was only a matter of time before he reached mine. I completely froze and didn't know what to do. It felt like all my common sense disappeared. Eventually, I opened my door slightly and saw him coming out of my younger sister's room. That's when my brain finally kicked back into action. I ran to my parents' room and woke them up, telling them there was a man inside the house. My mom woke up instantly while my dad was still groggy. We went downstairs together and found the man passed out on the couch with my dad's beers opened and scattered around him. My mom shouted at him to get out. He woke slightly and angrily insisted the house belonged to him. We tried to get him up, but he was completely dead weight. My mom slapped him trying to wake him, but he barely reacted. A few minutes later, my dad came fully downstairs, saw what was happening, and immediately took control of the situation. He shouted at the man that this was not his house and threatened him to leave. The man refused. My dad eventually had to physically lift him off the couch and drag him out the side door. He forced him outside and warned him not to come back before shutting the door. We thought it was finally over. Seconds later, glass shattered toward us. The man had punched through the window, sending broken glass flying inside. He pushed his face in through the broken glass like something straight out of a horror film, which, given the night that was in it, felt horribly fitting. While my dad went to call the police, the man started shouting aggressive threats, saying he now owned the house, that he knew what we looked like, and that he would return. Needless to say, we were all in shock. It was hard to believe someone would do something like this on Halloween night, of all nights. Eventually he left and the police arrived. They took statements from all of us. Mine was the longest since I had seen him first, not long after the police left. As it happened, there had been a light frost that night, unusual but not unheard of for late October in Scotland. There was a clear trail of blood leading down the street. The police followed it to a nearby playground where they found the man lying on the ground with blood and glass in his hands. They arrested him, and later confirmed they believed he was the intruder. Our window was replaced the next morning. We told my siblings what had happened. Surprisingly, they had slept through the whole thing, probably knocked out from all the Halloween sweets. Later, I received a restraining order against the man because of my age and the threats he had made. He was fined for the damage and given community service instead of jail time. When police questioned him about the weeks of knocking at our door before the incident, he claimed he knew nothing about it and denied ever doing it. It turned out he had actually lived in our house years before we moved in. He claimed there was no bad intention and said he had simply drunk too much while out with friends and accidentally gone into the wrong house. Thankfully, nobody in our family was seriously hurt. The only injury was my mom bruising her wrist from slapping him while wearing bracelets. Apparently that hurts you more than the person you hit. To this day, we still have no explanation for the knocking that happened in the weeks before that night. Even now, sometimes I feel like I hear a knock late at night. Maybe it's just in my head, or maybe it isn't. I guess I'll never know if it was him, or someone else out there, watching. I was renting a second-floor apartment in Logan Square, Chicago. Corner unit on a four-way intersection. Quiet street, mostly families and young professionals. I worked night shifts at a hospital downtown 3 days a week. The other 4 days I was home by myself. The first time it happened was a Tuesday, around 10:15 at night. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard someone in the hallway outside my door. Not footsteps, just a long pause, then a knock. 3 of them. Slow. I looked through the peephole. A woman, maybe late 40s, wearing a gray coat. She was holding a clipboard. She knocked again and said she was from the building management office and needed to confirm a maintenance request. I didn't open the door. I told her through the door that I hadn't submitted anything and asked if she could come back during office hours. She paused, then said she just needed to check the radiator and it would take 2 minutes. The second time was Thursday. Same time, around 10 at night. A knock at the door. This time it was a man. Younger, maybe late 20s, in a high-vis vest. He said he was checking the fire alarms in the building and had to inspect each unit. He had a yellow badge clipped to his vest. I checked with management again. No fire inspection scheduled, no email sent out. Nobody in a high-vis vest had been authorized to enter any unit that night. On the 5th night, a Sunday, I came home from a shift at 11:30 p.m. When I walked up the stairwell, I noticed my front doormat had been moved. It was pushed to the left side of the frame. I always leave it centered. I also noticed a small piece of clear tape on the door frame near the latch. I called the non-emergency police line. An officer told me what I was describing sounded like a pre-entry survey. Someone checking which units were occupied, which weren't, and what the routines looked like. The next Wednesday, I left at 6 p.m. as usual, but parked on the side street with a sight line to my building entrance. At 10:20, I saw the woman in the gray coat walk up to the front door and use an intercom to try buzzing in. I called 911 immediately. Officers arrived within 6 minutes. They stopped her outside the building. She had no ID, no credentials, and no vehicle registered to any inspection company. they detained her. While they were questioning her, the man in the high-vis vest was found 2 blocks away in a parked car. Inside, they found a clipboard with a printed list of addresses, fake badge holders, and a notepad with handwritten notes including times, light patterns, and shift schedules. Police told me the 2 of them had been working the neighborhood for almost 3 weeks, using different pretexts to figure out which units were empty. 2 apartments in a building 2 streets over had already been burglarized. I moved out when my lease ended 4 months later. When anyone shows up claiming to be from building management or any kind of inspector, I ask for their name, their company, and a callback number. Then I call building management directly before I do anything else.